All right. We're doing it. We doing it live. Hello. I can't hear you. Oh no, I can't hear you. Wait, how did you forget he has a beard? Hey, I can't hear you on Discord.
Hello, hello,
There
testing.
there we go. Now I can hear you.
Hey, good morning slash afternoon or evening wherever you are.
It is morning for me too, my dude.
Haven't do you stream nights or mornings? What's your
I stream in the evening, and I have insomnia issues, so sometimes
mm
my nighttime streams become morning streams.
aha. I actually for the same reason I kind of stopped streaming at night because I found that I would come off stream and I'd be so like jacked up on like fucking hormones and endorphins and everything that I'd be like I can't go to bed now. Do you
I'm
feel
pretty
that?
familiar with being jacked up on hormones.
uh, all right, one sec. Let me just set up because I wanna. Can we do video or do you have?
Sure. Though I have to turn it off. Yeah. We'll both do video on Discord.
Yeah, yeah.
There we go. Yeah. All
Okay.
right.
Let me turn this off
Give me a second.
because I do
And
like to see people's faces when I speak to them.
yeah, makes sense.
Uh, all right. Discord is here.
Okay. I think my camera should work now. Let me make sure. Yes, it does. Hello. And I will put it. You guys
Ah,
can
here
stop
you
freaking
go.
out.
Hey.
I'm. Thank you for the follow, Fidget Cube. Thank you very much. Um, Let me put this in so you guys can see what's going on. Howdy.
How are you?
I'm
Okay.
doing great.
Let me also just change this. I guess what are we talking about? Just chatting. I guess chatting
I guess we're
to
just chatting.
chatting with River Boat Jack. Okay, sweet. All right. What did we? What I think our disagreement the other day was that person came into the chat and was saying like defending capitalism aggressively,
Oh yeah.
and then what I was upset with is like I find that a lot of people who defend capitalism on Twitch
Mm-hmm.
are like do it in in a kind of aggressive like they look down on people who look at who like socialism kind of way, and I hate that.
Oh
Like
yeah.
and that's what I find a lot of people do. Like they come in aggressive in people's chats, they're fucking dicks, and it's just like chill out, you know. So in that way I have a big disagreement with them, but overall I think that I think I haven't been convinced of any arguments that right now the best way forward is to like seize the means of production.
Mm-hmm.
I am for decommodifying housing, healthcare. I live in Canada. I fucking love having free healthcare.
Yeah.
So free education. I think all of these things can be accomplished
Mm-hmm.
without the workers having to own the means of production.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I'll try to maybe make the case for that. I
Yeah,
guess.
I would love that. I'm always open to hearing discussions. Like I'm not married to my position.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
so yeah.
so I guess just to tell everybody, I'm a market socialist. So I am indeed a filthy lefty. I'm on the left. Um, and my basic position is that we should move most, if not all, countries. I dare on the side of all countries towards this position. And I'm also not married to the idea that market socialism is the best governmental ideology in the entire world. Just that it is a definite improvement over what we have, and there might be an improvement over market socialism in the future, but that's where I'm focusing on trying to get to first.
Okay. So how do you get? I mean, okay. I guess so. So many questions. So
Yeah.
Maybe you can expand more on what you mean.
Yeah. So socialism, a lot of people have different ideas of what socialism is and like what that means and what it entails and all these different other ideas.
Yeah, like everyone, and a lot of socialists even have different ideas. So
Right.
I think it's always good to get just get it straight from the horse's mouth.
So this is basically my fundamental position. I strip everything else away from socialism because there's a lot of historical baggage associated with the term, right? So like people associate socialism with like the USSR or with Cuba or with China, like a lot of different types of countries. You know, some people will call the Nordic countries socialist. And all of these things are misappropriations of the word socialism. So
Hmm.
um, socialism is two things. In order for a country to actually be socialist, it has to do two things. First, it has to essentially have workers control the means of production. And second, it has to decommodify at least a significant portion of its economy.
Okay, so one sec.
Yeah.
I just want to take so I can bring back stuff. So you said um, decommodify,
Hmm.
decommodify, and seize.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not gonna have to convince me on decommodifying stuff
Yeah.
because I already agree.
Hmm.
So that's why I would say I'm a sock them because I'm completely for decommodifying lots and lots of things. Like I think at this point their technology is there to have 3D printed houses. I think 3D printed houses I've seen cost like $12,000.
Yeah.
So these things are not that hard and unachievable.
Right.
So you can definitely decommodify lots and lots of things. So let's move to the C's part
Hmm.
and why you think that would make the situation better versus just purely decommodifying and staying with the current system we have.
Yeah, so I like to make the differentiation because I think the term seize the means of production tends to give people a lot of warning bells in their head, right? Like, oh, you're going to storm in with armed guards and take the workplace away, right? We actually have a means within like capitalism right now for workers to control the means of production, and that means is worker co-ops.
Hmm.
And so worker co ops exist all across the world in capitalist countries. And basically, my position is we should have programs in place that will, over time, slowly transition our economy from one that is primarily private companies to primarily worker co op organizations.
Okay, but do you think that worker co-ops are automatically have more um like because so there's a difference between a worker co-op
Mhm.
and a democratic worker co-op.
Right. So I think that there are so this is good. There are many different ways to run worker co-ops. A lot of
Hmm.
people aren't super familiar with them, but I think that generally the way that we should be running worker co-ops is that when I say this, essentially what I mean is a worker co-op that is the democratically controlled worker co-op. So every worker has some kind of say in the company's like I guess priorities, how profits are used by the company, et cetera, et cetera. And now this doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's like taking time off and lazing around or anything like that, but it does mean that, for example, you don't have one asshole at the top of the company who's making 5 million times more than any employee there.
Okay.
um
Sorry, keep
oh,
going.
no.
Right away, I just want to push back a little bit.
Hmm.
You can just again about the CEO making much more money.
Hmm.
So you can reform the system in under my system and say, okay, let's have a formula that says no corporation in the land is
Hmm.
allowed to have. There's a cap for what multiple the CEO can make with comparison to the lowest amount that the lowest paid person makes, the janitor, whatever.
Right.
And so in this way, you can have a much better control of the system rather than having to do reform everything.
Hmm. So
And then also,
oh.
just to go back to your other point, you mentioned about everyone should have a say on every aspect of the company.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering how that would work in practice.
Okay. Well, so I think the first question you asked is maybe more complicated, so I'll come back to that one.
Okay.
In the first place, and I know this from experience because I've worked to put together a worker co-op before. Essentially, there are different ways that you can organize a worker co-op.
Sorry, just sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, one sec.
no worries.
Hey, so hi, Rain, stay inside. I do have Discord, but right now I'm talking with Riverboat Jack. If you want to hang around, then I will. Maybe we can talk after. Or I do have a lot of things I want to get to, and I got to get to work by 8:30. So, maybe we might end up just talking for 2 hours right here. You never know. So I don't know. We'll see. All right. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Oh,
you off.
no worries. The first question is a bit more complicated, but the second question, I know from kind of some personal experience. Basically, there are many ways that you can form a worker co-op, and essentially, there are two different ways that I've seen that this works. One is essentially that you have a two-tiered stock system, like if it's a publicly traded company. This is how the Mondragon Corporation does it over in Catalonia. Um,
Publicly traded?
yeah, it's both publicly traded, but it's a two-tiered stock system. So
Mm-hmm.
employees earn tier one stock, and they have a say in the company. They're basically the shareholders. They have a much more direct say in how the company is run. They have much more power. And then public investors can invest at tier two stock, and they will have some measure of input, but not anywhere near as much as the tier one stock owners.
Okay.
Um, so that's one way you can do it, especially I think maybe for larger worker co-ops. Um,
So I
yeah.
we have a co-op here in Canada. It's called PCL. It's one of the biggest construction companies in Canada,
Hmm.
and they do massive fucking projects, airports, universities, hospitals, just crazy stuff. And it's run as a co-op. And my fiance's dad actually worked for PCL.
Hmm.
And so recently we had like an hour long discussion, and I just like actually like probed to figure out how this corporation works in
Hmm.
order to be so successful, right? And essentially how it works is at the end of every, so the shares are privately held,
Hmm.
so they're only for the workers, and at the end of the year, or at the end after you've been there for I think 3 or 4 years, so they start to offer you the shares at the end of every year, so you
Okay.
can a part of your salary can come from the shares, and as the company continues to grow, your shares will be worth more money, and then therefore at the very end, if you once you retire or once they lay you off, you can cash out at the price that the shares were worth at the time. If you
Okay.
decide to quit, you get your initial investment, like you get what it was worth, what it would have been worth in it originally.
Right.
So that's how they kind of do it, and they call it the gold lock or something, because once they get you,
Yeah.
they
It sounds that
keep
sounds
you.
kind of shitty. I don't
Yeah,
like that.
but well, that's how, because otherwise, how would you? It's kind of difficult to structure it, I think. But anyways, even accepting that,
Yeah.
my point is,
Hmm.
in his company, they don't have democratic decision making. He's still the
Right.
superintendent. The laborers come and lay the brick, and like so my problem isn't with the co-op system,
Hmm.
because I think you can have good co-op systems,
Yeah.
but my problem, I guess, is with the democratic decision making and whether or not that's going to lead to better outcomes or worse outcomes.
Yeah, I so here's my position is that we should have democratic worker co-ops as distinct from worker co-ops that have no worker input. Because I think there's a big difference between some sort of profit sharing system for workers and a system wherein workers have actual agency over the place that they work. So the other way of structuring worker co-ops that I know of, and by the way, I am by no means do I know all of the different ways we could do this, because one of the um, I guess like lesser known aspects of worker co-ops is like what are the most efficient ways and effective ways to put them together to like maximize like worker benefits, and this is just largely because there's not a whole lot of people who specialize in that kind of work, right?
I'm
Like
sure there's a lot of amazing methods that haven't even been tried yet.
exactly. And
Sure, I agree.
so as opposed to like capitalism, which has had 400 years to refine its business models, right? Or even more than that. But the other way is essentially each worker gets one vote, and this is the way that I'm in favor of it, right? And
Oh, okay, so
like,
this is what I need to take notes on because I want to hear what your idea of is. So okay,
yeah,
each day, each voter or each worker. Go ahead.
yeah, every worker has one vote, and then basically periodically the company has like some sort of meeting to basically nominate different platforms, like what the company is going to pursue for the next quarter, whether that's how the profits of the company are going to be used, like how much is going to be used to expand the company, how much is going to be used to increase worker pay or benefits or time off, stuff like that. And at these meetings, you can also determine, like, hey, should we keep the guy who is in charge of the company? Should we shuffle people around? Should we hire more people? All of these different things. And then employees can vote on these positions. Um, and
And then these would be all the employees, yeah?
yeah, all of the full-time employees. Like if you have contractors, maybe the contractors aren't involved, but I would generally include all full-time employees.
Okay. So I just wonder, like, how does that affect the efficiency of a company?
So all
Because
of
if you're gonna
yeah,
vote
yeah,
on
yeah.
all these things, then everyone has to have a vested interest in all these different, goings on in the company.
Hmm.
And is it efficient to have, let's say, your engineer who's well trained in software programming,
Hmm.
to have that person be spending time on the minutia of which office chairs we're gonna buy?
Right.
um
So
because like that, then if like maybe I want to have a different office chair,
yeah.
right? So is that the best way to spend time? And if it's not the best way to spend time, would other companies that don't run it like this have a competitive advantage?
So two things I need to clarify. I think number one is that you wouldn't necessarily be voting on the minutia of the company. It'd be more like the mandates that the company would have to pursue. So like um, there are different ways you can structure a co-op. There's like another way called like the flat model where like everyone basically is equal. You don't have any hierarchy. There are no bosses, etc. This usually only works for extremely small worker co-ops. I've only ever seen it work, for example, in like artist co-ops or for example, the whatever
Like a
game.
coffee shop and shit you can do
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, or like the game developer that made Dead Cells is a worker co-op, for example, um, and they operate like that. Um, but the other way is you basically structure it like a traditional company. So when you vote on the mandate, for example, that becomes the mandate for the board of directors for the company. The board of directors then like consists of like the head of the different departments. All of these different departments then pursue that goal, and essentially it's those people then delegate tasks to like the office administrator to like buy the chairs or something like that, rather than everyone voting on the minutia of the company. Though I'm sure that if they would like to, they could like nominate that as a topic to bring up at the meeting, stuff like that.
Okay, so I guess my response to that would be, um like, again, once you start drawing the line at, like, it's,
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about the minutia. Now all of a sudden you're getting a hierarchical system
Yeah.
where and then also on top of that, um what was the other thing you said that I wanted to push back on? Fuck, it's too early in the morning for me.
it's,
Fuck.
it's all good.
um Oh, if you have these kind of situations where periodically you're
Hmm.
meeting and having talk discussions about expanding the company, worker pay, time off, should we shuffle, should we hire more people?
Hmm.
When you're having these discussions every so often,
Hmm.
what ends up happening is you're gonna have, like, you see the American election, how you have like 2 years of campaigning. You're
Right.
gonna end up getting tons of campaigning within the company, right?
Hmm.
People who have different views on whether you should expand the company or whether you shouldn't. You're going to start to get, and then your entire company is going to get taken over. No one's going to be working anymore. Everyone's going to be just having discussions about, oh my god, okay, what do we do? And then that again leads to inefficiency and a lack of competitiveness versus the other company where the engineer's doing his job, the laborer's doing his job, the janitor's doing his job, and everyone's like at a pretty fucking good efficiency.
Well, so all of the data that we actually have on worker co-ops, because people have been studying them for like a very long time at this point, indicates that worker co-ops are actually about anywhere between 9 to 14% more efficient than private companies.
Are we talking about democratically run voter co-ops, or are we
Yeah,
talking about co-ops where? Okay, I'd love to see the statistics on that because I can't
yeah,
imagine how that would be. How can they possibly have efficiency if they're spending so much time voting on stuff?
yeah. I can drop them in the
Because the
Discord if you
democratic
like.
process, yeah, sure, the democratic process, while I love it,
Hmm.
is it takes time.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. I think that while flawed, the democratic process does inherently increase like freedom. And on top of that, I do think that like companies are inherently tyrannical if they're private companies, right? So while there might be problems, there are also problems in like traditional companies, right? So we are like it is like I'm not going to say there's not like some sort of fundamental difference where these wouldn't have problems, but I think that largely it's a beneficial trade-off that benefits everybody in the company as
But
opposed to just benefiting the people at the top.
if the problem is inefficiency and we're talking about market socialism, it's just not going to last. If it's inefficient, it's going to go bust. Other companies will have a competitive advantage and charge less for the goods and be more efficient at producing those goods.
Except that we haven't seen those
So,
things
sorry,
happen.
did you send it?
Oh yeah, I'm sending several.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The first
We
thing I
might have,
sent is more of like a primer, I guess, rather than a study.
okay, let me.
Um,
All right, so then, fuck, I'm not obviously not going to be able to go through all of these right now. We
yeah,
might
but
have to
just so you
revisit
have
this
them.
discussion, and yeah, I might have to go through these, and we might have to have a part two of this discussion,
Yeah,
because I'm not gonna fucking just read two
yeah,
sentences.
it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I just seems I just can't. And then also, like,
Mhm.
how do you get the best outcomes from this system? Like, how do
Yeah.
you know? Like, don't you think that, let's say, in some companies, most companies
Hmm.
are so complicated and the positions are so specified that, like, for example, at my lab, I'm doing cancer research. I
Hmm.
do cancer research on one thing. I have no idea what the guy sitting next to me is working on because his thing is so specific to him. My thing is so specific to me. So now, if we're gonna have a vote about what way we go forward, then I have to go and either inform myself, which is going to take a fuckload of time and energy,
Right.
or just vote blindly or out of intuition and gut. And I don't know.
Yeah. So again, like when I say people don't have to worry about like the specifics, I'm not saying we shouldn't, when we're considering the model, worry about the specifics. However, I don't think that you making decisions about like your working conditions, for example, necessarily mean that you need to know every bit of minutia of what the people around you are doing, because there are other people in the company whose job it would be, right, to know what that person is working on, what you're working on, like the general structure of the company. And I also would imagine like the way that like these meetings would go down wouldn't just be like you all file into a room, you're all expected to know everything. Instead, it would be you all file into a room. Probably the board of directors makes like a presentation, kind of like they do for shareholders, right?
Hmm.
And tells you like, here's what we've been doing, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. What do you guys want to do? And then you guys would make informed decisions because it benefits everybody in the company to make accurate and informed decisions, right? Because in a democratic worker co-op, everyone gets to reap the benefits of like increased productivity. Everyone gets to reap the benefits of increased efficiency. Everyone gets to reap the benefits of additional profits. So, like, everyone has a buy-in to a certain extent, and everyone can then kind of, I guess, pursue the job like with more investment in it. Like, then, for example, like someone flipping burgers at McDonald's doesn't have any investment in the success of McDonald's, right? Like it's just not like they don't give a shit if McDonald's turns a profit or not. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah,
But
but
if
uh,
McDonald's shared the profits of that and if they had some say in their working conditions, that they might give a shit.
but the problem is that the capitalist systems already offer stock options to employees. and that is their vested interest to do their job well.
I don't think stock options are the same as having actual agency in your place of work, right? Like,
Wait, how is stock options different from owning a part of the company?
so stock options are similar to owning a part of the company. This is true. However, it's not the same as like being able to talk with your fellow burger flippers at a fast food joint and be like, "Hey, it really sucks to be working here right now. We should
Yeah, but
maybe make a primary, nominate a platform that's like, hey, let's make this less shitty to work at."
so then that's what unions are for, right?
Right. But like a democratic worker co-op is essentially like a merger of union and company. So we just dispel with like the outside influence of a union and just
I I
have
can't.
one structure.
I guess I have to take you at face value for now because I haven't looked at these studies. But if you've seen how union leadership representations goes, like
Hmm.
these things take over companies, like for the duration of the time when you have to make elections for new union representation, they're very intensive and take away from like productivity. So I can't understand how, but I guess I'll have to read and learn more.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I would assume that it would be a bit different from like union scrabbling because like not everyone is suited to be like the head of a business, for example. Like not everyone has that skill set, right? Um, so it would not be necessarily just anyone can come in and run the worker co-op. But it would be different, I believe. And the other thing is, I don't know what the situation's like in Canada, but in the United States, people fucking hate unions. Like like in the United States, the only industries that are really unionized to any degree are like teachers and cops, and that's about it. And maybe nurses. Th-
But
that's it.
I agree that there should be more unions, but I'm not sure what that argument is.
Oh well,
Like
so
I
so
agree with
I
you that a lot of professions
mhm.
are not unionized and should be.
But I think that a way to get around the distaste and hatred of unions is to just have worker co-ops, since it simplifies the structure of both entities and essentially makes them into one thing that can operate more efficiently than like, the union having to negotiate and like go on strike with the bosses of a private company. This is all very messy. Why not just skip that entirely?
So what about so okay, so here's a
Hmm.
scenario I want you to resolve for me. So you vote on some issue, half the people voted to expand the company, half the people voted not to expand the company,
Hmm.
right? So now whoever edges, right?
Right.
Half they voted to expand the company. Now we're going to expand the company. Don't you think that the half that voted not to expand the company are going to be extremely resentful to the half that decided to expand the company? Versus in the current system, at least we just say, okay, fuck that guy. But in this case, you're going to have massive problems with morale and like you might have like a complete clash of everything. Like
Yeah.
the company might like fall apart. You need a company to be on the same ship, and by having so many voting things, you're causing 50-50 divisions the same way that we're doing in elections, for example, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would actually be okay and acceptable if we lived in a society where we had decommodified like housing and healthcare and all kinds of different, the things you need to survive in society. I think it would actually be much more okay for businesses to fail and to splinter apart. And, if half the people want to go a completely different direction and feel that strongly about it, maybe they splinter off and form their own worker co op.
But
This maximizes competition. This is a good
if
thing.
half no, if half the people decide that, oh, our feelings are hurt, we're going to fracture off and start our own company,
Yeah.
they have now taken all of that hard work of building the infrastructure of the company, the name, the reputation, the resources, links, connections, and now fracturing it and starting their own. They're putting themselves and their original company at a massive competitive disadvantage to companies that are already there. So you see how everything will just crumble from there because you're going to have
Hmm.
fracturing, and then capitalist corporations are going to just destroy these companies.
But so just I know that this is your hypothetical, but the pushback I would give you is that we've had worker co-ops in capitalist countries competing with capitalist companies for like over 100 years, and
But
some of them
okay,
can be quite successful.
okay, sure. I'll have to accept that for now until our second
Yeah,
conversation when I
like
read these.
I like the main.
I'm not gonna if you make that claim and you've sent me the links, I'll accept it for now until I
Yeah,
delve through it more.
I mean, like it's very possible it might be like what you say, but I think that that is still preferable to the current system we have, where like if your boss tells you to lick a shit covered doorknob and you say no, you can get fired. Like at least in America, it might be different in Canada.
Why would it be different under your system? If the hierarchy has decided that you need to lick this shit covered doorknob, then you have to do it,
Well,
don't you?
because I think the majority of people in your company probably wouldn't get behind the idea that you have to do something obnoxiously dangerous and awful like that. I think the majority of people would not get behind that policy.
Immediate recalls says whose username. What do you mean by that? Whose username? Someone in chat says you would do immediate recalls. What is that?
Yeah, I'm assuming like recall these whoever is responsible to the for the decision to tell you to lick the doorknob, and that person would probably get fired.
One person can do a recall?
I I'm not sure. It
See again,
depends on the
yeah,
system.
you can establish criteria where voting there needs to be 80% majority or whatever for the decision to come into effect. Then Dr. Buenawin, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage because it's going to be hard for you to get an 80% vote on most things. Yeah, what Jack said. Yeah, again, I don't know how you do it.
Again, maybe it's something where like yeah, you have an
Like
eight.
if you have one person that's able to call a recall, you know how much shit that would cause every time you have a
Well,
personal disagreement with
well,
the fucking boss, you're gonna do a recall.
but again, this is why I'm saying like we have a lot of room to figure out exactly like the different details of how worker co-ops work.
But
Um,
don't I don't
so
know. I
like
guess
I'm not saying that like having one person having the ability to do a recall is necessarily like the most efficient or effective way of doing things. Maybe you have a head of HR that the worker can go to and be like, "Hey, this guy's telling me to lick a doorknob and I think that that's really awful and not good." And then like that's something that has consequences for the person. Like there are different ways we can resolve this. It's just a matter of coming up with them. And again, I think it's something where largely, if we look at other worker co-ops that have existed in like the United States or probably in Canada too, though I don't know specific examples in Canada.
well that
Um,
that construction company I
oh yeah,
mentioned. But again, they're not democratic. That's
right.
my thing, right? So I'm okay with worker owned co-ops.
Hmm.
My issue is with like having everyone make decisions about everything. I just don't know if that's the best way. Sometimes
Right.
we got to admit, like for example, with this coronavirus situation, I'm going a little bit off topic, but this coronavirus situation, you know who fucking did a really good job of handling it? Anti-democratic countries,
Hmm.
authoritarian
Yeah.
countries like China that said if you fucking have coronavirus, guess what? We're locking you in your house with a padlock for 2 weeks. Okay. And that shit works as much as it sucks. Okay.
Hmm.
But it's effective because it gets everybody to fall in line. And I feel the same way about the corporate structure we have now. Whilst it sucks and it has some shitty aspects, when it comes to competing, growing, and making profits, which is
Hmm.
the world we live in today, capitalist corporations and the way they're set up as a tyranny, as an autocratic, authoritarian system, it's probably the best way forward.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely an argument to be made when you are talking about like the expediency of authoritarian style like
Yeah.
governments.
Decision making.
Yeah, decision making. Like
Yeah.
this is by the way why like the argument has been made and is commonly made that like starting up a business is much easier if you are doing it in a hierarchical or sorry
Traditional system.
like a
Yeah.
traditional system, yes. However, it seems like from a lot of the data that we have on worker co-ops, that worker co-ops have a lot more longevity and long-term success than traditional firms. Um, but like for example, now I don't know the inner detail or structure of this company, but Ocean Spray, the cranberry company,
Hmm.
they're a worker co-op, and like they generate around $2 billion in revenue per year. It's actually not uncommon for like agricultural workers to become worker co-ops. And this is largely because people who work in agriculture tend to have a lot of their own infrastructure and capital already, so that they can then band together more effectively and more easily than people in other industries like service workers and stuff. So they band together in like worker co-ops for survival, and it tends to work out pretty well for them. And this is the case with Ocean Spray. And also, they invented juice boxes, which is a fun little fact. If
All
you've
right,
ever had a
that's it. You
juice box.
convinced me.
All right.
That's it. You got me. Debate over. I lose.
Ever had a Capri Sun? You can thank a
Nah,
worker
you're.
co-op.
That's it. Fuck, I didn't think of that.
Checkmate, atheists.
Thank you so much.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. Juice boxes are pretty fucking lit.
yeah. Well, and
I'm just
that's the other
yeah.
thing too. Like most innovation comes from workers in companies, not from the people who run the businesses. Like not from the people at the very top of these things. Like oftentimes the people at the top were like born into
I
obnoxious
agree.
amounts of wealth and
Yeah,
don't know what they're doing.
100%. Yeah. So I want to ask you, how do you deal with stuff like this? Like, I'm just looking at Ocean Spray and
Hmm.
I'm just reading the wiki, right? I don't
Yeah.
know much about the company, but let's take a look. Okay. So in 2020, January 2020, they settled a class action lawsuit that claimed its products were misleading in advertising, that they do not contain artificial flavors since they contain malic acid or fermeric acid, right?
Hmm.
So how do you deal with stuff like this where it's in the company's best interest for profits, and those shares, all the people that are working there might say, you know what, fuck it, like this is a good idea, like, and for our own personal gain. So how do you prevent that, and how do you deal with that, I guess?
I mean, I guess
Because
I'd
like right now in the current system, right, what
right.
happens? They get exposed, and then like the stock price will drop, and then the I don't know, board of fucking whatever, the board will decide like, okay, fuck the CEO, he's an idiot, get him out, we bring in a
Hmm.
new one. So how do you do that in this system? How do you prevent that?
Yeah, I mean, I think largely it's through you would still have regulation for industries. I think that it would like largely worker co-ops would prevent by their democratic nature something like this because I find it very unlikely that uh no one during production of the product would be like, "Hey, we're saying that
Hey,
our
follow devil.
our product is free from artificial products, but like Joe down on the line puts artificial products in this, and like I don't think you'd get everyone on board with lying. And I think that if a small section of the company decided that it was more profitable to lie and did that, and then got the company got hit with like a fine or something like that, I
Wait,
think that
you don't think that the majority of, would say that again? You don't think
yeah,
something about lying? Can you repeat?
I don't think if you were transparent with your workers, the majority of them would say, "Yes, let us do crimes together."
Okay, but what about if but transparency comes
Hmm.
down to education, and education can be biased. So I could come out and say, oh no, let's imagine a co-op of an oil company.
Hmm.
And I could come and say, no, guys, here's a scientist I found. And this scientist says that global climate change isn't real. And if we actually expand the company, we can do, get much better world. Do you guys want to vote yes for that?
Hmm.
Well, then I'm sure a lot of people would vote yes for it because they've been poorly educated. So
Right.
again, you're gonna be prone to all of the same fucking same shit that you have under capitalist systems.
I think that it is. I think that that overestimates how easily people can be duped in a company. Like
Look how easily people are duped in the political
right
system.
in the political system, but that's different from being duped when you are a politician. I don't think our politicians get duped that easily. I think our politicians generally know what's going on in Washington. And the same can be said about workers who work at this company. I think generally workers have a better idea of what's going on at the company than most people outside the company. So we should give them the democratic control of that company, right? Yeah, you would still have people doing lawsuits against you. You would still have obviously there would be huge downsides if you got caught. And if people find out that you were fucking lying to the entire company to try and dupe them, yeah, you're also going to be out of that too.
I don't know. I just feel like it's.
I
I'll have
let me
to
put it
look.
let me put it this way. I think it's far easier to corrupt a few people than it is to corrupt everybody. That's my position.
I mean, I guess sure. But if it comes down to voting and you're giving people choices, I think it's not too hard to sales and advertisement works for a reason, right?
Right.
If it wasn't effective and there was some places where it didn't work, then this we would already know.
Hmm.
But it literally works on everyone in every situation. So all you need is good advertisement in these situations, and you can dupe people. You
Yeah.
can dupe people to vote against their best interest. But I think that in a corporate system, when you're let's say, for example, let's say you're the CEO, your salary is tied to the stock price, right?
Hmm.
That's your fucking motivation to make the best decisions possible.
I guess my general position is that like
Someone
we
says, sorry, someone says have confidence in your fellow worker. Listen, it's not the confidence in the worker. It's my confidence, and I'm not underestimating how effective advertisement and propaganda can be.
I guess my position is just that like you're right that people might make mistakes, and you're right that like that is a possibility in a democratic system, but it's also a big possibility in a hierarchical system. And in fact, it's a much bigger possibility because it's coming down to just a couple people making the decision, right? And I think that like this is just a problem we already have. And while maybe you might be right, I might be willing to give you this entire thing that like, yeah, it's a problem we already have, and this system might not fix it. But I think that fundamentally having workers have more agency in their company, even if the whole thing is a wash, is generally a better thing than workers having no agency whatsoever.
So one person in your chat says, by the way, hi, Revolt Rise. I'm creeping and shit.
Oh yeah, Revolt Rise is pretty cool. If you
Okay,
don't know
says
him,
no, I don't. Says the workers are less likely to be tricked into voting against their own interests. What if they vote for their best interests, but their own interests are in direct conflict with the best interests of the world or the city or whatever the case may be? So I'm sure, yeah, a lot of
yeah,
people would vote for their best interest, and that's what might have happened in that ocean spray scenario where they voted for their best interest to increase profits by lying about having artificial flavoring in their drinks. So yeah, I agree that can happen.
yeah, and
So I'm not sure
but also
how these problems get resolved. Like I don't know.
it well, I think that this largely solves two problems, and that's workers not getting the actual value of their work, because if you're working in a traditional wage slave job, you're by nature not getting the value of your work. And also, I think it addresses the issue of agency and control in your workplace. These are the two fundamental issues that I think people need in order to be happy and fulfilled and treated like actual human beings at their job. Um, and I think it fundamentally solves a lot of problems in our society. Like, what if these billion-dollar food corporations had to actually pay like the value that their workers contribute to the company, right? Like these chicken factories, I guess, like Tyson Nuggets or whatever, or Amazon had to pay their workers more than $15 an hour because and like they wouldn't have to die in overheated warehouses or piss
So,
in
but I have a
bottles.
solution for this
Uh huh.
that doesn't include completely restructuring the world.
Hmm.
My solution is you put a maximum wage or maximum multiplier between what the person that gets paid the most in the company and what the person that gets paid the least in the company. If the person at the top wants to get paid more, they're going to have to pay the people at the bottom more. Simple as.
I mean, part of the issue with that is that capitalism subverts a lot of regulation, like on purpose and
Yeah.
deliberately, and has for its entire history, um, like been like essentially a predator on democracy. And like this is so well known that we just kind of take it for granted, but it's actually like a horrible perversion of what our process is supposed to be like. And instead of representing the collective will of the people, which is what democracy is supposed to be, instead, democracy has now come to represent the will of a bunch of corporations, and sometimes the people. But like, I think that that is something that is inherent to capitalism, And it's not something that's going to change even if you put these regulations in place. They will continue to break them and pay small fines because it's worth more for them to break the regulations and pay the small fines than it is to follow the
Wait,
regulations.
so then, okay, listen, I'm not a big defender of fucking
Yeah,
massive corporations. I agree that like during the Wall Street bailout, like a lot. Hey, look what I just found in my pocket.
nice.
I agree that a lot of corporations. Oh shit, there's like this is a white T-shirt, and now there's like joint ash all in my pocket square. Fucking disgusting.
Oh no.
I agree that these corporations are out of fucking control and
Hmm.
have grasped, but like control over system. But like that can come down to campaign financing. All of these things I think can be addressed
The
without restructuring everything.
the issue is like even in countries where they have strong regulation against capital, we still see companies repeatedly and purposely abusing
Of
their
course, yeah, of
positions.
course,
And
of course.
I think that largely that would be solved by democratically running the companies. I think that that is something that would be solved. I don't think that most people who live in a country would, for example, vote for, even if it profited them personally. I don't think they would vote for policies that are like, yeah, we're gonna hire lobbyists to, subvert our democracy and allow us to break more laws. I don't fundamentally think that people work like that.
I think maybe our biggest disagreement is how people can be swayed. Maybe I agree that like people generally want to make the best decision that's available to them, and but I just think that with the nuance of corporations and all of these things and psychology and all these things, that it can be easy to manipulate what isn't at someone's best interest.
Why
But
would
I guess
but I
you're
guess like
go ahead.
why would you manipulate people in a worker co-op when you are making roughly the same as everyone else at the worker co-op or like within a certain range? Like
Because wait,
what does that
so
benefit you?
wait, so if you have, let's say, in the example of expanding the company versus not expanding the company.
Hmm.
So I'm saying, as the person who's coming to make the presentation for expanding the company, it's my interest is to expand the company for whatever reason.
Right.
I think it's a better way to go.
Hmm.
So I might come and misrepresent things to people, and in such a way, or make my PowerPoint presentation in such a way that might twist some stuff or only point to the positives and kind of downplay the negatives to get what I want. So what I'm saying is people are
Do you not think
yeah.
other people at the company would be able to call you on your bullshit though?
Well, it's a vote anyways, right? Like, so what do you mean by call? So who would
Like
call me on my? The people on my side wouldn't call me on my bullshit because they agree with me. So
but
it'd have to be the
you're
people. So it'd
like
be the people on the other side that call me on my bullshit, right?
but I guess you're like assuming that you have coordinated like an entire political, for lack of a better word, like party in your company who is
That's
okay
what I
with
think
you
will happen.
lying.
That's what I think will happen. Yeah,
I don't think the advantage like the benefits of lying in this situation
even
would
if
be
they're not
that
on,
great.
even if they're not on board with you lying, maybe they also, for whatever reason, think that expanding the company is the better way to go forward.
Yeah.
So they're not necessary, but then they don't, maybe they don't see your presentation. They just are like, okay, he's doing the presentation, we'll leave him to it. And then when you do the presentation, you get a big round of applause. And all the people that already agree with you are like, okay, blessed. He did a good presentation. He was convincing. Fuck it.
I feel like this is already a problem just on a much more massive scale because like right now people are willing to lie and cheat and steal on like the corporate level, like high level corporate level, but that's because the reward is like, you know, tens of millions of dollars or, you know, getting their company like a windfall of like 30% stock increases or something like that. Like people do this for large amounts of money. I don't think they would necessarily do it for um, what we're talking about when it's distributed to the like the profits and the results are distributed to everyone else in the company. Like it would be a much more like I guess like distributed system, and it would be much more difficult to reap these overwhelming rewards that currently are far easier to get. Also,
I
my chat
guess.
thinks that you have a Chad beard.
Yeah. Heem is a good guy. Oh, thanks, William.
Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, I think we're starting to go in circles now, and I need to look at your the links you sent me
Yeah.
so we can have a further discussion. But I will say, and I will concede this point, that capitalists on Twitch are dicks, and that there's no reason why we can't have disagreements and have
Hmm.
conversations. But when people come into, I've seen this in so many people's chats, when people barge into the chat and are fucking dicks, then it's just really difficult to get anything accomplished. You and I are having disagreement right now,
Yeah.
but we're respectful, and I think this was a really productive conversation. You got me to think about some things. I hope I got you to think about some things,
Yeah.
at least to, like, because like if you just come out guns a blazing, we'll never get deep into the conversation of how these corporations would work,
Yeah.
hypothetical scenarios, and so on and so forth. So my advice to capitalists out there on Twitch: don't be a fucking dick when you go into people's chats. Be nice, be compassionate. In the end, most of us agree healthcare should be free. Most of us agree that all on a lot of things. So let's
Yeah.
fucking be cool, man.
Exactly.
In
And
the end, we're all on the same side against fascism.
exactly. Well, and the other thing is like just I've gone through like the trouble of like planning out and trying to launch a worker co-op before, and like the structure problems are like a real thing. There aren't that many lawyers who specialize in helping you set up like a worker co-op. There aren't that many um like proven plans that I've seen, or structures rather. But these are issues largely of a lack of us investing in worker co-ops.
I'm on board with that. We can definitely open the
Right.
path for these co-ops to come into existence more, and so we can figure out how
Exactly.
they can compete.
Because here's the thing. I am also not in favor of Thanos snapping all private
Mm,
companies to become worker co-ops. My
hmm.
basic arguments are that we should have a government program that makes loans available to people who want to start up worker co-ops, and I think that this can be backed up largely because the success rate of worker co-ops tends to be higher than private businesses. And it might be a great way to get like low income people in on starting businesses. I think this would be a fundamentally good thing. And through this kind of effort, we can find out, how this best works. And then I also think, maybe when a business is ailing and needs like a government bailout to survive or whatever, maybe that government bailout is contingent on it becoming a worker co-op. Because worker co-ops, seeing as they tend to be more efficient and they tend to have higher worker happiness, um, and they tend to contribute more to their economies, and they tend to not, like, for example, workers don't tend to band together and say, hey, we should move the factory overseas. Tends not to be something that they do.
Hey, thank you, tiniest boop.
Oh, Tiniest Boop is the best. Thank you, Tiniest Boop.
That's the cutest fucking name ever.
Oh, it's the
See,
best name.
that's something we can all agree on.
But like, yeah, there are all of these things, and I think maybe if we that especially benefit communities and the government. I think that if we make these slow changes over time, I think that we can figure out the best way to do these things, and fill in these unknown blanks. And it might not be done for like 60 years or 100 years or even more than my lifetime, but I think it would be a slow change towards something that's possibly much better.
Okay. Before I go, can I tell you what
Yeah,
what I've envisioned might happen going forward?
go for it.
So, okay, so I think that we're at a point with automation that we don't need to seize the means.
Hmm.
We're at a point with automation where, let's say, a corporation has to pay $100 a year. I'm just using an easy number, $100 a year to an employee, but they can pay $10 a year for a robot to be maintained and do all the same work as that $100
Yeah.
um, employee. Okay, I'm okay with that. Go ahead, lay off your employee, but you have to pay now a tax to get that from $10 up to, let's say, $80. So you have to pay a $70 tax as the corporation on top of the 10 that you pay for the robot, and to pay tax, and then we can use that as a UBI or decommodification of goods and services. So you still have the incentive for the corporation to get the robot and lay off the employee, because they still go from $100 spent to $80 spent.
Hmm.
And then, in order for capitalism to continue, because it's no good to have capitalism if we don't have money to spend on goods, they will have to give us UBI. The same way that it's happened in Canada now with COVID, they realize, holy shit, everyone's out of work, but the few businesses that are in business, they need to have people have money in their pockets to spend on those businesses, right?
Hmm.
So right away, as soon as COVID hit, they're like, hey, anyone whose work has been affected by COVID, $2,000 a month. Use this money and spend it, put it back in the system.
Hmm.
So I think I envision that while so maybe seizing the means would have been an amazing strategy 100 years ago, 150 years ago, we're almost at a point now with automation that we are like liberated from most work, from most laborious, repetitive kind of work. Those days are going to be finished soon.
So my one response to that, among several things I might say, is just that that seems to consolidate a lot of power among people who are able to afford robots, right? Like not everyone can afford like an automated factory, right? Um, so my issue is this inherently creates like a subclass that is dependent on these people who own the robot factories, whereas the people who own the robot factories become an obscenely wealthy, like wealth we've never seen before on planet Earth, ruling class of some
Okay,
kind.
but you can cap this shit. Like I don't know why we don't have caps on this shit.
Okay, but like would the people who have the money and influence and power, i.e. these people who own
They
the
would push
robot
back. Yeah,
factories,
of course.
yeah,
They would push
how
back. But then that's
how
up.
would you counteract their ability to pay uh, almost infinite amounts of money due to the prosperity of these robot factories? Like
Sorry, I'm not sure. Can you repeat the question? I
like
didn't
I
understand what
guess
you said.
how would you counteract their influence? Like especially if like you were saying with like worker co-ops, if people are so easily swayed, how would you counteract that when these people have almost infinite amounts of money at their disposal? Like
But why would it be infinite money? They're paying that they have to tax back
well,
into the
because I mean like
system.
Jeff Bezos right now, even without a ton of
That's because
robots, already
yeah,
has
yeah,
three
Jeff.
hundred billion dollars or something
Why is
like
that
that.
though? That's because he's consolidating. He's fucking got lobbying going on. So I think that you can reform. It's the government that needs reform,
Right.
not the capitalist structure. The capitalists
But
are
how do you
doing the
reform
thing.
the government?
You need to get fucking politicians in there
Right.
that like AOCs.
Yeah, but like
You need
that's
more people to be involved in the political structure. You
okay.
need to have the will
So
from the bottom.
you're actually making my argument for worker co-ops right now. You want more people involved, but your counter to that was that people are easily swayed by like advertising and marketing
Hmm.
people. So
Yeah. So you
yeah,
need to have a better
democracy
system.
counteracts these.
So what I'm saying is you need to have a better system set up. Like okay, let's say Jeff Bezos continues going down this route,
Hmm.
unfettered, no fucking control. Where do you see us ending up?
I mean, I essentially see us ending up as like a laboring underclass because capitalists are still going to try and get as much money squeezed out of people as possible, even if they do have futuristic robot factories.
Okay. And so at a certain point, let's say, for example, this is happening in Toronto right now, where housing has become so expensive that
Hmm.
people have to move further, 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 further away, hour and a half commute sometimes to come into the city. So at a certain point, this balance is going to tip to the point where like people won't be able to afford goods anymore. People won't be able to afford housing anymore, all this shit. Okay. At that point, that is actually a harm to the capitalist systems.
Hmm.
They don't want us to be so broke that we don't have money to spend on the goods.
Right.
So it's in their best interest to make sure that there is some kind of, like right now, I agree. Amazon's completely fucked, but I don't know. I
I mean,
guess
like we have examples of this from like the early 1900s with like company towns. I imagine we'd be going back to something like that, just like in a more futuristic sense. Like, you know, you are kept living a subsistence life, and you are kept isolated from other people.
under my system of the with the
Well, like
robots.
if we're going towards like a system wherein like people need money and need like to make do and like survive because they've been pushed out of cities or whatever,
Oh, okay,
through
okay.
these market forces. Like the capitalists are going to make sure that you have just enough money to pay your rent, just enough money to buy some things, but not enough money to do much else. And they're going to keep you in that desperation because that they make more money that way.
Okay, but if you have free time, what's better than that?
Well,
What's more liberating than free time?
but what if they keep giving you a workload instead of giving you
How?
free time?
How?
They find something else for you to do. You mine in the robot mines. You have to drone manage a fleet of robots in the mines to make more robots.
Okay,
Um,
so then we
and they
wouldn't be unemployed, right?
well, but they do this to keep you from having the free time in order to say, hey, this is pretty fucked that like these people get to live a life of luxury while I have to work. Because if they give you the free time, you're gonna get angry. And you're gonna
Say that
realize,
again. Sorry,
oh,
I say that last sentence again.
I just think that there is a lot of incentive for instead of capitalists giving you free time during which you can be um, discontented or possibly organizing or all of that, instead it works in their best interest, even if it's just busy shit work that doesn't actually matter, to give you work to do so that you are under control and you don't actually have to
If
question
that
their
were the
rules.
case, why would any corporations lay people off then?
I mean, you're like we're talking about this
In
hypothetical
favor of
future,
in favor of automation, right? Like I
right?
used to work for a robotics company that
Hmm.
made these robotic arms that
Right.
pick up items, put them on the conveyor belt. They replace like 50 people like
Yeah.
that. So the capitalist doesn't care. They just want the maximum profits. They'll
Right,
let you go.
but we're talking about like in the future when everyone has roboticized their factories, right? Like, and you're saying that this will lead to capitalists giving people free time, and I'm saying,
No, I'm
or
saying unemployment will lead people to have free time.
right, but
And if you have decommodified housing and all these things,
well, oh,
then
okay, but that assumes we get decommodified
yeah.
housing. It assumes all these things that these capitalists have a lot of capability of preventing from happening, or trying to prevent.
But my point is, in order for the capitalism to continue to grow, there has to be some money from coming from the bottom up.
Right.
So it's not in their best interest to have us both be unemployed and fucking with no money. Like they will see that like if the majority of the population's jobs, truck
But that,
drivers,
but that,
fucking factory,
but that's my point. They give you jobs that pay just enough.
who's they? You don't have to get a job.
Well, you don't have to get a job, but
If
you might.
every things
Well,
are
okay, but
commodified,
let me put it this way: if it's a system that is very similar to what we have now, where you need to make rent, otherwise you go homeless, they have a lot of leverage over you in that way, like
okay,
capitalists do.
and so what I'm saying is, because they were able to lay you off from $100 a year to $10 a year,
Hmm.
they should have to pay back up to 80, $90. So you still have a little bit of incentive for the corporation to lay you off and get that automation. But they have to pay that money back into the system for decommodified housing, for decommodified fucking whatever, and UBI.
Yeah, I just think that this is a
I think
recipe.
okay, what I'm saying is I think this is more likely than seizing the means and going to socialism in the future.
Well, but that's my issue. I think that in your version of this, capitalists have so much power that it enables them to effectively work against what benefits the most people, even in a democracy. Because this is something that we have seen all over the world time and time again. And if we're just giving more people more money, like even if in a UBI system, there's a way they can squeeze more and more excess money out of you. I just think that this is something that sets it up for continuing exploitation for the foreseeable future. You know, whatever the end game is. I think that capitalists are incentivized to find additional ways to exploit people so that they get more profit, they get more wealthy, and there is no point at which a capitalist says, "Yes, I have enough money now. I have an automated factory, so that means I have enough money." No, there's no point where a capitalist reaches that point, right? Like they'll continue
which
to
is
try
why
and
which
get
is
more
why
money.
which is why I think that they'll have to make sure that the people at the bottom have some spending power.
I
That's exactly
I
my
I
idea
guess
behind it.
I guess I find that to be like a really shitty like dystopian system, and I would much rather a system where everyone's able to succeed. That's my
You're
socialist
making me want
system.
to rage quit. Listen, I'm just telling you, this is like I'm open to having the discussions. You guys can change my mind. I'm just saying the way we're going now. This is how this is. I see this as a more likely scenario than uh, socialism or whatever
Oh
taking
yeah,
over. I think like I just think automation is progressing so fast that like it's gonna fucking take over a lot of the rudimentary jobs that we have.
I guess
And yeah, I don't know.
I guess
We'll see, I
my
guess.
my position is just like if you're in a worker co-op, there's no reason to be worried about automation because you also benefit from the increased productivity of automation. Like worker
Say
co-ops,
again, sorry?
well, if you're part of a worker co-op that automates, you also gain the like profits from the automation by being part of the
Sure.
worker co-op.
Sure,
So
yeah.
there's like no reason for a worker co-op to really fear automation or like laying off people. Um,
But worker co-ops lay people off too.
Well, yeah, they do, but also
Why do they do that?
the people who might get laid off from a worker co-op due to automation would get the benefits of that automation services. Like they
And
can
in
move
my
to
system,
different
they
parts
would
of the
too.
company.
And in my system, they would too. Right?
How
I said that you would
well,
tax
no,
per
you're
employee
under your system, you get a fraction of what you were making
to
from
sit at home.
UBI.
Yeah, to sit at home with decommodified, goods. So you might get only you might have been getting $100 to fucking bust your ass 40 hours a week. You might now be only getting $70, but you're at home. You get to fucking spend time with your family. You get to do things you enjoy, and you have decommodified housing and all these good goods.
I'm still deeply uncomfortable with the existence of like a ruling class over those groups of people. How do you address that?
What do you mean by ruling class?
Well, the people who own the factories who are profiting more than the people at the bottom.
We already have that.
Yeah, but
So
like
how
I think
it
that's
exists
bad.
today, and I mean, it exists today, and life is going on.
I,
Like I don't know what's, I don't think it's all of a sudden because we tweak it a little bit that it's things are going to get dramatically worse or something like that. I don't see how or what's going to happen.
I mean, I think that if you have this upper class of people, they have incentive to continue exploiting people, and that's just fundamentally a bad thing. But like
I guess we'll see.
yeah, I mean,
It's just something I've recently thought about, and I'm just trying to like project
yeah,
the path we're going
I
in. And I think what a lot of socialists fail to address is how automation falls into this hypothetical future 100 years from now, and
for
I
sure.
think that should be thought about.
I guess my position is I would rather the workers have control over how the automation is done and then how the profits from that automation are used. I think that having that at the discretion of like a democratic body rather than like one person at the top or a couple people at the top is better.
I hate to fucking push back again, but co-ops already lay people off
Yeah,
when they're of no use to them. So why wouldn't they lay off these same people in this system? Once the
well,
automation comes, the co-op's gonna lay off these people. So
because
what say do they have?
worker co-ops tend to preserve jobs more so than private companies.
Okay, more so, but they're
Yeah,
still gonna lay people off when it's in their best interest.
yeah, they might
Maybe a little bit slower,
yeah, they might
but
lay
it's
people
gonna
off,
happen.
but you at least get some benefit. You might maybe, and here's an idea: you continue to have a stake in the company after you get laid off if it's due to automation.
Which so a stake in the company, another
Yeah,
word would be we could tax the profits. So I guess it's just we're talking about nuance here of like you either have a dividend in the company or stock in the company, or I am in favor of taxing it heavily and
hmm
redistributing it.
yeah.
And that's where I guess our difference comes. Maybe in this case, I'm even more socialist than you because I'm in favor of redistributing it, and you want to have them have incentive to
Yeah, like
happen.
I fundamentally believe in like individual freedom and like maximizing that to the greatest possible degree, and I think that private
What's a better way to
companies
do
are
it than
tyrannical.
What's a better way to maximize freedom than to have free time?
Well, exactly, but like that's my position for decommodification as well.
Hmm.
My only position for like decommodif or worker co-ops is that worker co-ops counteract the tyranny of private companies, and I think that that's fundamentally a good thing. I would prefer to live in a democracy than like a dictatorship, and I would
Which
prefer to work in a democracy rather than a dictatorship too.
I guess. All right, let me go read those things that you sent me,
Yeah,
and I would love to revisit this conversation. This was a
for
fucking really, really nice.
sure.
This was the best conversation I've had with a socialist on Twitch.
Well, and
Uh,
you're really cool and nice, so like it's pretty easy to have a conversation with you, even if
eh,
we disagree.
yeah, exactly. I've always been raised. My mom raised me right to fucking be nice, be compassionate, listen, all the good stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of people on Twitch don't seem to have mamas that raised them right. You know.
Peru.
Um,
I should ring up my mama and tell her I'm very proud of the way she raised me.
you should. That'd be adorable. And yeah, I mean, like, I'm willing to talk with anybody about anything. Like, even if I have severe disagreements with them. Like, there have been people on my Twitch channel who come on and are like, "Yeah, I think I should be able to own women as slaves, and because I hate women." I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit, I guess.
Hmm.
So, people are a bit weird on here. So I'm glad we were able to have a good conversation.
Excellent conversation and
Yeah.
productive. I think. I hope
Well,
everybody enjoyed that a little bit at least. I see
yeah.
fucking everyone in my chat's ripping on me, but fuck them.
I mean, fundamentally, I think that this chat was absolutely delightful because we're both coming from a place where I think, at the very least, you want what's best for your fellow like human beings, and I want what's best for my fellow human beings. Our tactics just differ a little bit.
Hmm.
Um,
100%.
yeah,
And in the end, a lot of this is just theoretical. We kind of it's both can be argued, I guess.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so I think
Oh,
that
let me get to know a little bit about you before we
yeah,
part ways.
sure.
So are you in America?
Yeah, I live in Minnesota, so I'm basically an honorary Canadian.
Nice.
Yeah.
I one time I had to go to Minnesota for a soccer tournament. Hear a funny story. So I had and the day before I had to go to Minnesota. I'm from Canada. I had to go to Minnesota for a soccer tournament. The day before I went, I came back from Iran. I went to go visit my family in Iran.
Hmm.
I came back from Iran and then I
Oh,
was
the jet
16.
lag.
I was 16 and had to go on the plane by myself. There was a layover in Chicago, O'Hare, and then I was supposed to go to Minnesota. 16-year-old, first time flying by myself. My mom's like, "Okay, son, please take care. Don't forget. Don't lose your passport. I love you, honey." So I fucking get on, or go on in the airport, and then right away they have the U.S. Customs, and the
Oh.
U.S. Customs like inside of Canada. So the U.S. Customs is like, when was the last time you went to Iran? And then I was like, I'm like, I fucking
Oh
just freaked
no.
out, and I'm like 3 years ago, because when I go to Iran, I use my Iranian passport, and then
Okay.
other time I use my Canadian passport. These two are completely irrelevant from each other. There's nothing in my Canadian passport that shows I've ever been to Iran or anything right now.
Hmm.
So I said fucking. So I'm like, yeah, I went to Iran like 3 years ago. So right away they're like, all right, they're like, come on this way, extra screening and shit. So they literally held me for like fucking 4 hours,
Oh, that
fingerprints,
sucks.
all this bullshit, blah blah blah, da 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 da. Fingerprints. I missed my first flight. Because I missed my first flight, I missed my second flight
Oh
in Chicago.
no.
And they told me I had to stay overnight. And I'm 16 at an airport in Chicago all by myself. There's like literally an 8 hour line to get to the person at the front to figure out like what's gonna happen with my ticket. Literally the longest line I've ever waited in my life, with one person at the front. So finally we get to we get to the front. The lady gives me a ticket for the next day. And I'm like,
Ugh.
what the fuck? I'm 16. I'm in an airport in a fucking random city. I don't even have anything. So luckily, I rang up my parents and they're like, honey, don't worry. Use that emergency credit card we give you. Don't worry. It's okay. Go
Okay.
use it. And I got a hotel. Luckily, I don't even know how they gave me one. And the next morning, I went back to the airport and they had given me a first class ticket to go to Minnesota.
Ooh.
16-year-old
Nice.
in first class was fucking lit.
Oh
Uh,
gosh.
but yeah, that was my Minnesota story. It was good times.
Yeah,
Have you ever been to Canada?
I got lost in the Boundary Waters once, and
What is that? Like in between?
yeah, it's basically like just massive forest in between the U.S. and Canada, and I crossed over there during being lost.
Illegal. We
I
need
know
to build a wall to keep these people
I'm
out.
illegal. I'm illegal. And then I made my way back. It was fine. Not a really great story, unlike yours, but that was the only time I've been to Canada. I'd love to go back sometime.
Yeah,
Um,
Canada's pretty
it's
lit.
preferably not being lost in the woods this time. But yeah, I'm a writer and an editor. I'm like a freelance writer and editor. I also do like I work in the video game industry. I do some consulting there. Um,
That's
and
fucking dope.
yeah, yeah,
Anytime anyone says they're a consultant, I'm like, you fucking lucky. How did you get that job? I can consult people.
it's not as cool as it sounds, but like basically I worked as like a video game journalist for like a decade, and like a podcaster, and like did video stuff for a while, and did some cybersecurity things. Basically I've done a whole lot of stuff, but I haven't been paid very well for it, so I'm not like stupidly rich or anything like that, unfortunately. If anyone out there is stupidly rich, who needs like a sexy show bunny, hit me up. I clean up real nice. Um, and yeah, then I
Someone in
started my
chat
Twitch
wants
channel.
someone in chat wants me to ask you your favorite Pokemon.
Mareep, the sheep one, the one that looks
Bo-
really cute.
Boom. And how long have you been on Twitch?
I started about a month and a half ago.
Hey,
Hey.
I go. All right, let's talk again sometime, yeah?
Yeah. Well, first you have to tell my people like what you do. You know.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm a PhD physics candidate. I in the daytime after my show in the morning, I usually do show from 5:30 to 8 a.m. Eastern. And after that, I hit up the hospital, do some cancer research, and then that's pretty much what I do. We like to hang out, smoke weed, chill, just go over news,
Hell
make
yeah.
fun of Republicans, and yeah, have a great time. It's always a good time. And yeah, you rated me the other day. That was fucking awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, one of my people in my chat was just like, "Hey, you should raid this guy." I'm like, "Well, is he like a leftist, or is he like
And you
I
see, they
don't
lied to you. They lied to you.
I I know you're a filthy
Republican.
soakdem. Oh well, yes, you're a Republican
Yeah.
soakdem. It's very strange. I don't understand how it works, but you know you're making it work for you.
Uh, good talking to you.
Yeah, it was lovely. You know, feel free to come on anytime or hit me up. Okay.
All right, we'll do. I'm gonna read these things you sent me, and we'll schedule another discussion maybe next week.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to even just like even if you don't agree with me, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it anyway because I'm always interested on how to like reach more people with these ideas and thoughts and
I
stuff
mean,
like
what
that.
the best way for anyone to, you know, get their ideas concrete down is to be questioned on them, right?
Yeah,
So I think it helps, even if I don't change your mind, you can further concrete your position.
exactly. This like I literally have a research document that I've like been assembling since like I started going through stuff on Twitch
Mhm.
and like just having like a list of sources so that I know like better what my positions are and how to argue for them. And
Yeah, yeah, again, and it goes back to a lot of the capitalists on here are so aggressive, you don't even get to have the interesting discussion. So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it's hard to have a discussion with the capitalist who's like, "Yeah, I don't care if like 200,000 people die, whatever." I'm like, all right, I don't know how to reach you, but that's fine, I guess.
I only think 100,000 people should die.
Yeah,
I just,
exactly. You know, my limit's only 150,000. Okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what socialism preaches.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
You take it easy, okay? You have a
take
nice
care.
day.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye. What a lovely, an amazing human. Amazing human. Hello, Dylan Burns TV. How you doing? I see that you have you are fairly large. Hello. I don't know how you found this channel, but how are you doing? I should probably turn my camera back on so you're not just all looking at Discord, where I don't have many interesting things for you to look at. Um, there we go.